Hello and welcome to the Michael Clark Show podcast, where every Wednesday I'll bring you an interview with a different special guest. Many will be from the world of sport. All of them have a story worth sharing. In a time when doom and gloom is all too easy to find, this is a place where we'll be promoting the positive. So I hope you'll keep me company each week as I explore where our guests get their motivation and inspiration from to succeed. On this week's podcast, we prove that it is possible to find time to follow your passion in life by speaking to a really talented Irish rugby player who is also a health service hero. What a journey she has been on. Claire McLaughlin, thank you for coming on to episode 4 of the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Michael.
You are such an interesting person and someone whose story I really wanted to share with our listeners, because it strikes me that you find time to do two very time-consuming activities and still enjoy it, whilst many of us are looking for inspiration during the various stages of lockdown, etc. So that's something that I think people listening to this hopefully will learn a bit more about. For anyone that doesn't know, Claire is an international rugby player for Ireland, and she's also a junior doctor in the NHS. So as I said, I'm sure time is a precious commodity. How on earth do you manage all of your commitments?
I'm not going to lie, it is difficult. So yeah, I'm working in the Ulster Hospital in A&E at the minute. And as everyone is aware, there's a pandemic at the minute, and it's hectic enough. So I suppose that's part of my life, being in A&E. I do 4 or 5 shifts a week, and then outside of that, I'm training, and at the minute I'm rehabbing, but I'm attempting to get back to playing rugby. So a lot of training, a lot of gym sessions and conditioning sessions, and looking at different rugby skills and analysis, all that sort of stuff on the side. So there's a huge amount of free time in my life, but no, I love everything that I'm doing, and yeah, I wouldn't change it.
We were having a little chat just before we came on, and I was saying, like, I've never watched so much TV, and you said, Michael, I've not watched any.
Yeah, it's funny, like all my friends have been on Netflix and they're always looking for the next series to watch, but no, I haven't watched half of what they have. Literally haven't been on Netflix barely at all, so it's hard to find time to do that sort of thing, and I think that's something that I maybe should try and do more of. Try and actually chill out and just sit down and not do anything for a while, because I guess there's a lot of times whenever I'm just constantly on the go, and it probably would be a good thing for me to actually sit back and relax for a bit.
Are you someone that kind of struggles to chill out and hit the pause button?
Yes, definitely. I think if I'm not feeling like I'm being productive with my time, I massively struggle with that. So whether it's training or cleaning the house or preparing something for like the next week, I'm just always doing something. So yeah, that's definitely something that I need to work on, is kind of trying to hit the pause button and just sit down and chill.
Have you always been like that, do you think, or when did it kind of kick in?
I think I've always been like this. Yeah, since like through school, I was always pretty academic, and so like would have been at school, would have stayed for after school clubs, football, hockey, athletics, whatever was on. I was always after school for a bit, and then once I was home, I would have done the homework, and I was always doing things. So I would never just have sat down and done nothing in the evenings. And even through uni, like I suppose doing medicine, you're always having to revise and having to keep on top of your studies, and then obviously trying to play rugby as well. You just don't have much free time. So I guess it's just the way my life has been. I've just been used to not really having a huge amount of time to just chill out.
So all your friends and family are well used to it then. You need a good schedule if you're going to get a time in with Claire.
Exactly. Yeah, it's actually been quite nice during like in some ways during this pandemic. It's given us time away from rugby, and for me, I suppose with doing rehab, I've not been involved in any sort of rugby training during this time, so it's given me a lot more free time, a lot more weekends whenever I'm actually able to see friends and do things that I wasn't previously able to. So it's allowed me to kind of appreciate those things that I was sacrificing, or that I was choosing to do rugby over certain things. So Yeah, it's been nice over the past year to see that whenever I do have free time, there's stuff to do and there's enjoyable things that I can do as well. I think that's kind of useful for me, like because I'm coming towards the end of my rugby career if I manage to get back to playing rugby. And I think this has kind of shown me that life after rugby is going to be amazing. It's going to be so good because I'll be able to enjoy more time with friends and family.
You're from a fantastic part of the world as well, Bushmills. I spent several years up in Coleraine whilst I was a student at Ulster University, and all that area is just such a lovely place to be. So I imagine during your childhood, you had a good old time.
Oh, I had a great time. Yeah, so grew up on a farm just outside Bushmills. So my dad was a beef and sheep farmer and two brothers, and yeah, we had a great childhood growing up out in the yard and running around, throwing a ball about, kicking a ball about in the garden. So I think that's where my interest in sports in general kind of started. Although I was awful at sports through primary school, like horrendous. Um, but yeah, no, childhood was great, and even just being able to drive 5 minutes and be at the beach, yeah, it was class.
Oh, there's nothing like it on a sunny day all the way up around there. It's just amazing. And I always found it really funny because the international students that came over kept telling me what an amazing country it is. And I thought you should tell more people here that.
Yeah, I know. I don't think we appreciate what's actually on our doorstep a lot of the time, but no, it's a lovely part of the world. And now I've been in Belfast for over 10 years and I really miss it. So I'm hoping to move further north in the next few years.
Yeah, there'll be some arm twisted behind the back there of the other half, maybe.
No, no, he's keen to not be in Belfast, so he'll be happy enough with that.
Oh, brilliant. But just to give a bit of context to this, this is such a busy time for you as well because you're planning to get married, you're in the middle of a house move, there's all that happening as well.
Yeah, yeah. So working, training, moving house, and then hopefully getting married in April. So I've got plans made for a plan A and a plan B because obviously at the minute with restrictions we don't really know what's going to happen. But yeah, hoping to get married 10th of April this year. And then we'll be in Belfast for the next year or so, and then probably moving further north after that.
Oh, amazing. I'm tired just hearing your plans. That's just amazing stuff. Growing up in a farm environment then with your dad doing that, what was that like? Were you chipping in or were you like, oh no, this isn't for me?
I loved as a young girl. I loved being out on the farm and putting on the boiler suit and the wellies and getting involved. But I suppose as I got older, I kind of didn't do it as much. And I guess it was just as school was getting busier and I had other interests and things. I just wasn't out in the farm as much. But it's something that I did love. And even in the future, like myself and Johnny, my fiance, we might have a few sheep out the back or something like that further down the line. Because he's from a farming background as well. So I'm sure there'll be a wee bit of farming done at some point.
Oh, there you go. Once it's in you, you can't get away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was only going to go one of two ways, wasn't it? Either you were going to completely embrace it or you were going to grow up and maybe be like a vegan that had an aversion to muck.
Exactly. Yeah. No, thankfully, I love animals and love eating meat. So yeah, no, it's gone that way.
When did you start getting into rugby? Because it's interesting to hear that you say, during primary school years, you weren't particularly sporty.
Yeah, so at primary school, I struggled to get onto the football team. They put me in goals because I literally just couldn't use my feet. Um,
Bad
just
teachers, bad teachers.
they should have taught me how to do it properly. But yeah, it was probably during secondary school. So I went to Coleraine High and it was really good for sports. I suppose it was because it was all girls. Everyone was kind of encouraged to do as much as they could and to try out different things. So yeah, during secondary school, started off playing hockey, which I'd never played before. Got onto the football team and managed to play outfield. So I was in defence, but I was happy enough with that. And athletics as well. So I just tried my hand at everything. And I think it was probably around fourth year, I started getting better and a bit more athletic. And then tag rugby became an option, and I joined the tag rugby team whenever I was 16, so GCSE year. And from there, I was just like, I love this. And I knew that I would love rugby because I'd watched it growing up. Like, we always watched Ulster play on Friday nights and would have watched Six Nations and everything. So I was always interested in it. And then whenever it became an option, I was like, yes, this is for me. And then Ballymoney set up a women's team. So I joined that whenever I was 18, and getting to tackle people and run into people, it was unreal. Because I suppose at school it was just tag rugby. So it was kind of helping me develop those hand-eye coordination and the passing skills and that sort of thing. But whenever I got into full contact rugby, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Did you surprise yourself? Because, all of a sudden going, do you know what, actually, I love the rough and tumble of this, the physicality of it. Was that something that you always knew was missing from tag rugby, or was it just something when you hit your first crunch and tackle, you went, oh, I found my sport?
Yeah, I didn't know that I would have enjoyed that. I suppose growing up with two brothers, you're kind of used to the rough and tumble. But I didn't think that I would choose to be involved in doing that, week in, week out, in playing rugby. So yeah, whenever I got to play at Ballymoney, I was like, yeah, this is great. I want to be doing this more often.
And was it something you had other friends doing, or what kind of got you into going to Ballymoney and trying out there and getting into that team?
I suppose I was playing hockey for Ballymoney Hockey Club as well as a school. And there were a few girls there who were interested in going and trying out rugby. So a few of us went across, and then we were playing a bit of both. So on a Saturday, you would have played your school hockey game in the morning, then you would have gone to the Ballymoney match in the afternoon, and then played your rugby match on the Sunday. So it was a full-on weekend of absolutely wrecking yourself, but I absolutely loved it. So yeah, there was a good group of us that went across and played at Ballymoney. And then I guess whenever I moved to Belfast and to go to Queen's, it was then trying to work out which club I would go to, because Queen's did have a club, but they weren't in like an All Ireland league. And I knew that I wanted to play at a better level. So I kind of looked around, and I'd been playing for a tag rugby team in the Belfast League that year, and there were a couple of girls there who played for Cook. So then I went and joined there, and that's kind of where it all took off. Got onto the Ulster Rugby, the women's rugby team that year, first year of uni, and yeah, just went from there.
You make it all sound so easy.
To be fair, like I never thought that I would play for Ulster Ireland. I never thought that I would have the ability to do that. And I suppose it's kind of just come from my drive and the fact that I work hard and just want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. So I guess that's how it happens. It hasn't happened by chance, even though I kind of think it has. But no, it's happened through a lot of hard work on my part, and a lot of good coaching and good support around me.
It shows, because your confidence could have easily been dented from your primary school experience, where you weren't making it onto teams. You might have just thought, like, I'm not going to bother wasting my time applying for these chances or putting myself into this, because I've been here before. So where did the confidence come from to, I guess, not be fazed by previous setbacks?
I think it was probably from PE teachers and like hockey coaches in secondary school. So there was probably the first year at Chlorian High, I was playing hockey and I was on the B team. It was my first year ever playing hockey. So I wasn't overly fazed by that. And even the fact that I was on the team, I was happy enough. But there was one of the hockey coaches who said to me at that point, you have potential here, and you're not meeting it because you don't believe in yourself. So I think from that kind of gave me a bit of a boost, and also kind of made me think, right, okay, I need to work harder here. I need to like meet my potential. And I think from that, I was like, right, I want to be the best that I possibly can be. So just the fact that she saw something in me and had that belief that I could be better, I think that gave me a bit of confidence and kind of made me go for it. So that was definitely one of the things that spurred me on.
And it shows you the importance of what you say and how you coach other people, and even just in life, how you interact with people, because that bit of encouragement can make all the difference, whether you meant it to or not at the time.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. Because then even further on through school, we had a hockey tour to Australia, which was unbelievable.
That's pretty good.
And yeah, so the squad for that was announced like a year or a year and a half before it actually happened, and there were only 26 girls going. So they announced it. I think initially there were 15 or 18 girls announced, and I wasn't on that initial one. Um, and I just knew I want to go to Australia here. I want this opportunity, and that was something that really, I suppose, having that goal there and knowing what I wanted to do, it really spurred me on and helped me push myself to prove that I should be on that. And I think that's something that's definitely been important going through and then being involved in rugby squads and having difficult conversations with coaches where you're maybe not getting selected. And I think that's kind of where a lot of my resilience has kind of been developed right through from primary school, secondary school, and then into what I've been doing the past few years. So
Yeah, and that's the thing too, because I think having those challenges can only make you a better person and a better athlete as well. It's very hard to relate to the ones that just coast through life.
I wouldn't say I've coasted, if that's what you're trying to
No,
insinuate.
no, no, you haven't at all, and that's what I'm saying. Your story is
Okay.
very relatable, because we've all, whether we're trying to be international rugby stars, Claire, or whether we're applying for a promotion in our work, people get setbacks, and it's about how you respond to them. And you just continued to not take no for an answer, which I think is a testament to you, obviously, and everywhere that you got. If I kind of take it into the first time you got into the Ulster setup, was it a big rise in standard right away? Was it really noticeable, like, wow, these girls are good?
So at that point, I'd only played rugby for a year and then was playing with Cook. And that first year with Ulster was literally just like having the Cook team with a couple of other girls involved. So it didn't feel like a massive step up. It kind of just felt like training with the club team with Cook. But then I guess whenever we came up against the other provinces, that was whenever you then thought, okay, this is a wee bit more intense. So, like with Ulster, it's been a difficult few years because we've struggled with having the same standard of players as the other provinces, just because we don't have as many clubs in the top leagues. So we struggled to compete over the years, and it has been really quite frustrating not getting too many good results with them. But I guess in the past few years, we definitely have seen massive progress in that, and there's a lot of younger girls coming through who've played rugby from a young age, from minis and right through underage and things. So it's great that that's starting to become a thing, and hopefully that will improve things with Ulster. But yeah, definitely going from the likes of Ballymoney to Cook to then playing for Ulster and playing against the likes of Leinster and Munster, who were much bigger girls and a lot better drilled at that point. That was scary at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you come up against, let's be honest, like, it's just very, very physical, easy, I would imagine, to be intimidated by some of the amazing specimens you come up against. How do you keep yourself in the mind zone of, we're in war here and we're going for it? Because, like, it'd be easy to be, I guess, intimidated and shy away.
Yeah, it definitely would be. But I think with rugby, you just can't have that sort of mindset. If you go into a game thinking, oh, I'm so intimidated by the opposition or by my opposite number, you're not going to come out well. It's the sort of thing you have to go in 100%. Otherwise, you're either going to get injured or you're going to let it try in. So, yeah, it's the sort of thing you just have to have the right mindset from the outset. And yeah, it's something that I haven't really struggled with throughout my time playing. I guess I've just backed my own ability, even if the other team are bigger, or my opposite number is bigger, stronger, is faster, has a better step or whatever. I guess something I've learned in the past few years is that if you know your opposition, then you're going to be able to defend them and really be able to outplay them and know their strengths, but then also be aware of your own strengths and be able to then use that for your team's benefit. So yeah, it definitely it can be intimidating, and I think it's okay to be intimidated for a while, but I think it's also important to recognize your own strengths and your team's own strengths, and go into a match feeling confident about that.
I had a little nosy on your Instagram before we came on here, and I noticed you've got a brilliant game face. You're definitely a competitor.
My game face is awful. I've always got the cheeks puffed out and eyebrows like up in my forehead. Yeah, it's pretty full on.
It's funny though.
One of my coaches.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was one of my coaches. He was like, off the pitch, you're so quiet and so polite and so nice, but I would not want to come up against you on the pitch. So I'm a complete different person whenever I get the boots on and get onto the pitch.
Love that. No, you could just tell looking at the pictures, you think, she's in her zone here. There's no stopping her.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why you've been so successful, clearly. What did it mean to you when you got into the Ireland squad?
So that was a massive surprise for me. First off, I honestly, as I said, I didn't think that I would ever play for Ireland, and it wasn't even. I'd say it was something I aspired to do, but I just never thought that I would get there. So whenever I got onto the squad, it was initially I couldn't believe I was there, and I suppose I spent a year on the training squad, but didn't actually get to play. And at the time, I found that quite disappointing because you play the game because you want to play matches, and training all the time was it was a bit disappointing. So I think that spurred me on to be like, no, I need to actually be good enough to make it onto this playing squad. And I think that year was probably really good in allowing me to realise there were certain things I needed to work on. And there were weaknesses and things that I maybe had neglected. And for international sport, you need to have another level. So that year definitely helped me develop as a player and even just get into the gym, because I hadn't done any sort of gym work really before then. So it allowed me to get stronger and more athletic and work on certain skills that I needed to. But yeah, whenever I finally got to play for Ireland, it was unbelievable. It was a relief, I would say, initially, but it was so special. And I guess in the run up to getting my first cap, there were a lot of things that went on. I'd been an unused sub in a match in the Autumn Internationals, which was difficult enough. We had travelled over to Twickenham to play England, and I was on the bench as 23rd player and was hoping to get on in the centre. And there were so many times we got up to warm up, and then one of the girls got a knock to the head, and I was called down to the sideline, thought I was getting on, and then it just didn't happen. And my parents had travelled across, my brother had come, and it was really disappointing to not actually make it onto the pitch for my first cap. And that was all in final year of medicine as well. So I was also revising for my medical finals, which were happening in February. And obviously Six Nations happens in February and March.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of, building up to this potential first cap and medical finals. So in training camps, I had my books with me. We would have done 2 sessions on Saturday, 2 sessions on a Sunday. And between all of those sessions, I was trying to fit in revision. So it was full on. And then the week before we were due to play Wales in the first game, I got palpitations in the training sessions that weekend, and ended up, I didn't get my first cap at that point. I had to have a procedure done on my heart, and I had to put off my medical finals because I was getting this procedure done. So I thought I was going to be playing for Ireland against Wales, thought I was going to be doing my medical finals, and instead I ended up in hospital. So
My goodness.
thankfully, I made it back onto the squad a few weeks later. I think it was 3 weeks after that, and made my debut for Ireland against Italy. So that's kind of why I say it was a relief to get onto the pitch. And it was amazing to actually have made it to that point, considering everything that had happened before.
And was that brought on by stress? Because you mean, everything you've described to me there, your anxiety levels would have to be through the roof.
Yeah, so it was probably partly triggered by stress that I was under and the amount of caffeine I was taking. But there was like an underlying abnormality within the heart. It would have probably needed fixed at some point, but that kind of just flared it up, and meant that I needed something done sooner rather than later. So thankfully I got that sorted, and I've had no issues with it since. So it's good that it was picked up at that point and is now sorted.
When you look at everything that you've had to come through before that first cap, was there ever a point where your family were saying, "Now, Claire, do you really need this in your life? You're studying to be a doctor, you're very busy, maybe rugby could just take a wee backseat for a couple of years"?
No, like surprisingly, I feel like they maybe should have. But no, my parents have always been really supportive and just let me do whatever I want to do, and have just backed me to be able to balance everything and cope with everything. So no, there was actually no point where they said that to me. So yeah, maybe I should have a chat with them and say, do you know, in future, maybe say to me when I'm doing too much.
I think that is just a sign, though, that they saw your potential, they knew how much you wanted it, and they ultimately had the faith in you that you knew yourself what was right.
Yeah, yeah, I guess you're right there. And they'd seen me through school, everything that I was doing, and everything that was trying to fit in. But obviously, on it was a completely different level of stress and everything once I was trying to do finals and play rugby for Ireland. So yeah, it was pretty full on.
Once you have that experience of making your international debut, is it kind of hard to come down from that initially? Are you just running on adrenaline for days?
Yeah, I would say after that first cap, yeah, I was definitely running on adrenaline for the next few days. But then you have to park that, and you have to move on to the next bit, because we played Italy that weekend and then we had Scotland the following one. So you kind of have to get over the fact that, you know, you've got your first cap. Yes, you enjoy it and you celebrate it, but it's on to the next task then. And for me, that was getting to start against Scotland, and that was unbelievable. So I got to get 2 wins in my first 2 caps for Ireland. So yeah, like it is difficult to come down after any match, obviously because it's so physical, and then even the next few days your body is in bits, and it's about recovering. And for the women's team, it's difficult to do that, because if we play on a Sunday, you're back into work on the Monday, and that kind of brings you back down to earth as well, because yes, you've had this amazing day on the Sunday where you've got your first cap for Ireland, but then you're in for a ward round at 8 a.m. on the Monday morning. So yeah, you enjoy it, but there's other things to be done as well, and other things to focus on.
I imagine you wouldn't want a big shiner walking around the hospital.
It's happened a few times. Yeah, people do look at you a bit funny, and get a few worried faces, and people making sure you're okay. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You say you
I've
should see
also
the other girl.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But no, my colleagues got well used to me coming in with all sorts, fingers and splints, and wearing moon boots and all sorts. So I've had plenty of injuries over the years, and they're not really surprised anymore.
You've been through the wars. I read that you have a bit of a nickname as well. Is it true they call you Mick Swaplin?
So they used to call me McLaughlin. Yes, that was in my first year of work. I was working full time at that point. So since then, I haven't actually worked full time because of rugby. But that first year, I had to do full time, and it was difficult trying to get everything moved around. Like you have certain shifts. Like we got a rota for the full year, so you knew what you were expected to be working. But obviously then rugby requires a lot of weekends off,
Yeah.
and even with the international stuff for travel days, you're needing Thursday, Friday, sometimes a Monday as well. So yeah, that year I had to do a lot of swaps, swapping weekends and nights, and there's a stage where I had to do, I think it was 21 days in a row because of all the swaps I'd done. So
Wow.
that was horrible. But that was in the off season of rugby, so I suppose it meant I wasn't having to do quite as much outside of work, but I wouldn't have really have had much energy to do it anyway.
No, I was going to say, for anyone that isn't aware, even with my limited knowledge, those are very long days to be doing 21 consecutive days, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I suppose during that first year, it would have been a mixture of like 9 to 5s, 9 to 9, and then 9 to 9 night shifts as well. So the normal days were okay, where you're just doing the 9 to 5, although 9 to 5 in a medical job usually ends up being 9 till 6 or 7.
Well, you see,
So
that's what I've heard. You know, it's you can't just go, I'm away. If you're about to leave and something's happening, you get pulled back in.
exactly, and you do have responsibility to stay and do your job, and you don't get paid the overtime, and it's just expected. It's part of the job, and we all take that on, and we're all happy to do that because we want to help people, and that's just part of it. But yeah, it's difficult enough, and that first year of work was a real challenge. That definitely it definitely made me question why I was doing everything. And at the end of it, I was so happy that I took a year out after that first year because it was so full on. And then we had the World Cup that summer. So yeah, I just needed a full on break after that because yeah, working full time and trying to play international sport just didn't work for me.
No, and that in itself is a brave decision to take. You know, after you've put so much energy into this, to evaluate things and say, look, if it's going to work, it has to go this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I had to sit back and think, what do I actually want out of life, and what do I want to prioritize? And even more importantly than that, am I completely burnt out? Yes. I had zero energy. I was getting sick all the time, and I just needed more time to myself and more time to chill out, even though my chilling out isn't maybe the same as other people's. Um, so yeah, making that decision to take the year out was easy in some regards, but difficult in others. Like I suppose I could see my colleagues and those that I'd gone to uni with moving ahead in their careers, and there were certain senior doctors and consultants who had said, "Are you sure about this? Like you really need to think about your medical career here." But in my head, I kind of thought, look, I'm only going to be playing rugby for the next 5 6 years maybe. So whenever I'm 50, I don't want to look back and think, oh, I maybe should have like done a bit more. I think whenever I'm older, I'm going to look back and think, I'm so glad I actually played rugby and gave myself time to do that, because I'm not going to be able to do it when I'm older. So yeah, in hindsight, it's been the best thing that I've done. Was taking that year out and then going less than full time. It's kind of given me a better balance with everything.
Yeah, and look, things have worked out really well for you. The Rugby World Cup, being one of two Ulster players chosen to represent Ireland at a World Cup, does it get much better than that?
Like I didn't even think of it in that way. I suppose just being involved in the World Cup at all was massive. I think this seems to be a common theme throughout everything. I wasn't sure that I would make it onto that squad, and it was touch and go. I think there were 28 of us in that squad, and there were 5 centres. So I was one of 5 on that. And looking back, like, that meant that I was one of the top 5 centres in Ireland, and I never thought of it that way. Whenever I was on the squad, I was always like, "Oh, she's a better centre than me," and they're like, it's just my mindset. I constantly think that I'm not good enough, and I think that's something that has helped me in some ways, because it spurs me on to want to be better. But I think it's also held me back a wee bit, because I'm not as confident as I should be in my own ability. And I suppose that's something that, going into that World Cup, I wasn't overly confident, because I knew there were 5 centres. You could really only have 3 on a squad. So going into that, I wasn't overly confident that I would get to play much. And that became a reality for that World Cup. Like, it was amazing to be part of it. But looking back on it, it was actually quite a disappointing World Cup. We came 8th out of 12, and I only got to play in one of the matches in that World Cup. So yes, it was fantastic to be involved in it, and to be able to say you've played in a World Cup is class. And even having it in Ireland was amazing, because it meant we had the home crowd, and we had all the supporters there. But as I said, we didn't perform, and overall there's a bit of a negative vibe from the majority of the squad members that were involved in that. So that's why this next World Cup, hopefully in 2021, is going to be huge for the squad, because I think we obviously need to still qualify for this World Cup. Hopefully we will, and hopefully we'll be able to make amends for the last one.
Yeah, it's all going to come thick and fast. Hopefully it can happen. What are we, about 7 months away from it actually happening, the finals?
Yeah. So it's meant to be in September, October of this year in New Zealand. And they're still hoping that it is going to go ahead.
Well, New Zealand are having like parties and, big concerts and all, so hopefully
it will. I think the only issue will be with teams coming in from other countries. If they're having to quarantine for 2 weeks, and then because the tournament has been increased, and like, so it's longer now, it would potentially be 7 weeks that girls are going to have to get off work. So that's the difficulty, because we're not professional. You're having to rely on your employers to be flexible with you. And with everything being up in the air, even with the Six Nations being postponed this year, they don't know when that's going to be played. Normally we get a schedule sent out months in advance, and we know exactly what weekends, what days, when the matches are being played, when you have training. But now everything's just so up in the air. So it's difficult for everyone to try and plan. But no, hopefully they'll be able to get the World Cup qualifiers played. Hopefully Ireland will qualify, and then hopefully the World Cup will happen.
Does it? I know it's not nice being in rehab and you've had surgeries and everything else, but does it make it slightly easier knowing that you're not missing loads of matches, maybe as many as you could have missed?
Yeah, oh definitely. Like, I suppose this injury's probably happened at the best time in a way. Yeah, so I've had 2 surgeries over the past couple of years. Got back from the first one, played a couple of club games, played a warm-up game for Ireland, and then I just knew my ankle wasn't right, so ended up getting another scan and needing a further surgery. And the rehab from that has been even more frustrating and more difficult, because I wasn't able to walk properly for about 3 months, which impacted me in work, because in A&E you're on your feet all the time. So that was difficult enough, and then I wasn't able to train like I wanted to. And then at that point, the girls were in training camps, so knowing that you're missing out on that is difficult. But I suppose, as you say, the fact matches haven't really been happening. The girls have only played 1 match since Six Nations of 2020. So I haven't missed out on a huge amount. There haven't really been any club games that I could have been involved in either, and now the All-Ireland League has been completely cancelled for this season. So I suppose there's not many women playing rugby at the minute. So I'm not missing out on a huge amount, but I really, really miss it, and I really want to get back. So I'm hoping that I'm getting back to running at the minute. Rehab's starting to progress quite well. So starting to get back to running and hopefully get back to rugby at some point. But I've been out for quite a while now, so I'm kind of waiting to see what happens.
I know this is going to fall on deaf ears, but I'll say it anyway. Don't push yourself too hard.
I am well aware of that. That's something that I have done over the past couple of years, and that has set me back. So I think this time around I am being a lot more patient and taking things a lot easier than I would have before. So no, I'm not pushing myself too much, don't worry.
I'm very happy to hear you have a sensible head on you, Claire.
Yes, I have to. I have to now.
That's the real difficulty with injuries, because you do feel like you're missing out, don't you? And you just want to get back involved. So it's easy to think, oh, it's only a niggle. I can run a bit harder. I can run a bit longer. You know, no one will notice. I'll just keep going. I'll power through it. And that can go against you sometimes too. And I've been on the end of that. You know, I've broken my leg twice, unfortunately, and I know what it feels like to try get back running too soon.
Yeah, it is really difficult because you know what you were previously able to do, and you just want to be back doing that again.
Yeah.
Like during the time whenever I wasn't able to walk, I would have gone down to like the towpath in Belfast and like just sat and watched other people walking and been so jealous of their working ankles. And now I'm at the stage where I'm seeing people out running and I'm like, I want to be doing that. And to be fair, I am starting to do that, but it's just been a very, very slow process. And even with not being able to run, like I want to be able to run to be able to do normal things in life. It's not even about rugby. So obviously rugby will be a bonus if I do get back to playing. But yeah, it's a struggle being injured and not being able to do what you're used to doing.
So like the scale of the injury then, you're saying just about normal things. How bad are we talking?
So the initial injury was ruptured ligaments and my ankle was unstable. So I had that fixed. But then whenever I had the scan, whenever things weren't really going too well, I had a cartilage tear and some like bony swelling, so it was called an osteochondral defect of the ankle joint, and it's just a frustrating injury. Like any physios I've seen have just been like, these are really annoying injuries and they can take a year, they can take 18 months. Sometimes it even takes 2 years to get back to running again. So I always hope for the best, but I'm kind of expecting that it is going to take a good bit longer. Like my last surgery was in June of last year, and now I'm able to walk comfortably. I'm able to run a kilometre at a time. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to slowly increase that and that it won't flare up. But yeah, it's the sort of thing that's just going to take a frustrating amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. Your mentality makes a big difference in these sort of scenarios, though. I truly believe that, because you just need to trust the process. You can't make it any better any quicker, so you just kind of have to let nature take its course and believe that eventually it's all going to be worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a difficult thing because it is just going to take time. There isn't anything more that I can do. If I do more, I'm going to do more damage. So yeah, it's just about recognizing how much is enough and it isn't going to be too much to flare it up again. So yeah, I'm getting there. I'm definitely seeing progress, which is great.
That's one area in sport maybe where we don't give enough attention, because physical injuries we treat with physical remedies, if you like, but sometimes we forget about the emotional side of it. There's nothing worse than feeling left out of something that you were a big part of.
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably one of the things that I really struggled with, was not being down in training camps and then seeing the girls posting in WhatsApp groups saying, oh, do you want to come to our room for tea? And it's just like, oh, I'm missing out on that. So like, yes, I'm missing the rugby aspect, but I'm missing the social aspect as well. And it's difficult, like with a rugby squad, the majority of those girls are dotted all over the island of Ireland, and some are over in England. So, and even with COVID, we're not able to travel and see each other. And the only times we really would see each other is in rugby training and matches and things. So it's even just not being able to keep in with them has been difficult. And yeah, I suppose, yeah, the mental aspect of having an injury, and just not being able to do what you're used to doing, that was definitely a struggle, and I've definitely had plenty of dark days over the past few months, but starting to see progress is definitely keeping me going.
What would you say to anybody listening to this who's maybe got an injury of their own they're overcoming, to, you know, how you, I guess, have adapted how you think, and maybe helped yourself feel a bit better about it?
I think definitely take every little bit of progress as a win and celebrate it. Like whenever I was able to go out for a walk and walked 3 kilometers, I was like, this is amazing. This is so good. My ankle isn't sore. And like we celebrated that. And then getting to do 1K run a few weeks ago, I was like, oh my goodness, this is class. I'm back to doing this. So I think having certain goals is important, but not putting too much of a time frame on them is also important, because for me, I find that really disappointing whenever I've been told, oh, we think we could have you running in 6 weeks, and then it doesn't happen, and it's pushed on another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So I think having an idea of a time frame is okay, but not being totally set with that. So being flexible with your goals, and also just being easy on yourself. Like I'm one to be pretty hard on myself, and just expect to be able to do everything by a certain point, and I like to have things organized and know in advance when I'm going to be able to do things. So that's something that I've struggled with, and something that I've had to learn to do. So yeah, I think also having really good support around you is so important. So like my fiance Johnny has dealt with a lot over the past few months. Like people in work are like, you're so patient with this. And I'm like, yeah, you don't see me at home.
That's so
yeah,
true.
no, yeah, having someone there who is level-headed, but who also listens and will put up with your whining whenever you're saying, I just want to run. I just want to go and play rugby. So yeah, having a good support system and good support network is key.
So well done, that man, then.
He has done a lot. He's been very good.
Well, that's good news in the lead up to a wedding, then, that you're both very fond of each other still.
Yes, definitely.
Just before we finish, obviously there's so much going on in the world at the minute. I imagine your job has been really difficult. There's no amount of training could ever really prepare you for this. How have you coped with that?
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic in A&E. From the start of the pandemic, everything was just up in the air. Like I suppose no one really knew much about COVID at the very start. And there were just so many changes, and everyone just had to be completely adaptable to whatever happened. I remember the first few weeks, literally every day you would have come in and something would have been different. And that was difficult, just not knowing, but everyone was in the same boat. So you kind of just got on with it. And it's only looking back on it that you're like, oh my goodness, we actually have had to deal with a lot of change and a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges. So yeah, it has been hectic, and even at the minute in A&E, it's kind of mixed at the minute. It is busy, but there's some mornings you could go in and there's only a handful of patients in the department, but an hour later it could be completely full. So it's just, I suppose A&E's like that anyway. It's the unknown, it's the uncertainty of what each day is going to be like. So I guess you're kind of used to that anyway in A&E. But with the added pressures of the pandemic, with having to wear the PPE, having to have social distancing, and lots of different sort of structures in place in the department, it does make everything that little bit harder. But I guess it has shown me that everyone has come together. So like everyone's in the same boat, from the reception staff, doctors, nurses, porters, secretaries, like everyone is in the same boat and we're all dealing with the same things. So when we're there, it's just get on with it. And yeah, it's been okay in some aspects because we are all in it together and there's a really good team of us. There's really great consultants at the Ulster ED. So yeah, no, it's been challenging, but we've got really good support from our senior staff. So yeah.
I think people have done so well to get to this stage because there's so many pressures on everybody at the moment and in more aspects than I have time to fit into this conversation. And I know you appreciate them, but when you see the pictures of, you know, people being treated outside of hospitals waiting to get in and the levels that staff are going to make sure that nobody's left out, you can only just take your hat off to everybody working throughout this and in every different facet, because at times it must feel overwhelming. Surely it has to.
Yeah, it definitely is at times, especially whenever you're in a completely packed emergency department. There's nowhere to see patients. You're having to see people in the corridors and the waiting room. There isn't any real privacy for patients either, so it's difficult trying to navigate all that. But the thing that I've noticed is that the majority of people are more aware of it and are so much more appreciative of what you're doing. And even there's times that we have to do a door shift where you're literally acting as bouncer at the front door of A&E. So you're screening the patients for COVID symptoms, taking their temperature, and then deciding what area they'll be assessed in.
They definitely put you forward to be the bouncer, don't they? Or like, if there's anyone here that can dump tackle one of these people.
No, remember, I'm just like that on the pitch. I'm a wee lamb, really.
Don't do that. Don't do that, anybody, please. Yes, I'm only joking.
But no, like the amount of people that come up to the front door and they're saying, "I'm so sorry that I'm coming up and taking up your time," but if people are unwell, they need to be seen. And that's the thing that concerned us a wee bit at the start of all this, that people weren't coming up to get checked out, and we were concerned that the fear of COVID was kind of keeping people away who did need medical attention. So yeah, people are much more aware of the pressures that we're under, which is really good. And it's great that there is that knowledge out there and that people are really appreciating what we do.
There's an Instagram account I'd really recommend. I don't know if you already follow him. Have you ever heard of Dr. Mike?
No.
Right, Dr. Mike is brilliant. So, well, you can tell me after you go and check him out because you're qualified and I'm not. But to me, as someone whose previous medical knowledge came from the TV show Scrubs, I just find it really interesting because he does Q&As and people send him in questions, and because he's a real doctor, he can answer them, but he does it in a very lighthearted, funny way. So one of the weird quirks that I have found through I don't know, the last couple of months is I've started following like interesting people on Instagram who just do these quirky videos about their professions. I don't know why, but Dr. Mike is a must follow, I think.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Sounds good.
And you can tell me then whether he's highly recommended from our care professionals here. It's been lovely catching up with you, Claire. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, and I wish you well with everything, the house move, the marriage, the very busy job, the rehab. I mean, the list goes on, but I wish you well with all of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me, Michael. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Michael Clark Show podcast. You can follow me at mclarkshow on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Check back every Wednesday for a brand new episode, which you can download as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also watch the entire interview via my YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/The Michael Clark Show. And if you like our theme song, it has been kindly provided by the brilliant SX70. Search for SX-70 on Spotify to stream their music. Until next Wednesday, take care. I'll speak to you soon.